You've probably heard the term big data thrown around a lot, right? But what does that actually mean for the companies you use every day? I mean, they're collecting information about everything, all the time. But how do they actually handle all of that without completely drowning in it? Well, let's pull back the curtain and take a look.
Just think about it for a second. Every single click you make, every purchase, every interaction you have with a website or an app, it all generates a piece of data. Now multiply that by millions or even hundreds of millions of users every single day. It's a staggering amount of information. And it brings up a really big, fundamental question. Where on earth do they keep it all?
To really wrap our heads around this, we first have to appreciate the incredible scale of what we're calling the modern data deluge.
Now, for you and me, maybe we store our important files in, a spreadsheet or some documents on our computer. But for a company, that's like trying to hold the entire ocean in a coffee mug. It just doesn't work. They are dealing with this massive, non-stop river of information from their products, their customers, their sales. It just never, ever stops. They need something way, way more powerful.
So you've got two choices, right? On one side, you have simple files, like a giant Excel sheet. But let's be real, those get messy fast. They're painfully slow to search once they get big, and they will literally break under the strain of millions of records. And don't even get me started on security. But on the other side, you have databases. These things are built from the ground up to be super organized, incredibly fast, and seriously secure, even when you're throwing massive amounts of data at them. It's really no contest at all.
So what is this more powerful solution? Well, it all starts with something called a database, and you can think of it as a much, much smarter container for all that information.
So what is a database, really? At its heart, it's just an incredibly organized container. Instead of just dumping information into a folder, a database gives it structure. It makes it ridiculously easy to access, to manage, and to search through. Think of it like a super-powered digital filing cabinet, one that's built for an industrial global scale.
Okay, great. So we have this amazing, powerful container that's neatly storing all of our data. Fantastic. But how do we get anything out of it? How do we actually interact with it, ask it questions, and get answers? You can't just double-click to open it like a regular file. Nope. We need a special way to communicate. And that special way of communicating, well, it's a language. To get what you want from your data, you have to learn how to speak its language.
And that language is called SQL. It stands for Structured Query Language, and it is the universal, undisputed standard for talking to pretty much any database out there. It's simple, really. You use SQL to ask a question, you send that question to the database, and the database sends you back the answer. It's the essential bridge between us and the powerful insights hiding in our data. And here's the kicker. It's not just people sitting there writing SQL all day. Of course, you've got your data analysts and data scientists asking all sorts of complex questions. But guess what? When you log into your favorite website, that website is sending an SQL query to a database. That fancy business dashboard your manager is always looking at? Yep, it's firing off SQL queries constantly. Apps, reporting tools, software developers, they are all talking to the database, all the time.
Now, with all these people and all these applications shouting questions at the database at the same time, you'd think it would be total chaos, right? A complete digital traffic jam. Well, that's where the DBMS comes in. That's the database management system. Think of it as the ultimate balancer or traffic cop. It stands right in front of the database, fielding all those incoming SQL requests, checking security to make sure you're allowed to ask, and organizing everything so it all runs smoothly. It literally prevents a total meltdown. All right, so we have to use this language, SQL, to ask questions. But what does one of these questions, or as the pros call them, queries, actually look like? Let's break it down. It's probably simpler than you think.
First things first, don't let the jargon scare you. When you hear someone say they're writing a query, all they mean is that they're writing a question for the database. That's it. It's just the official term for it.
So let's take a super simple, everyday business question. Imagine your boss comes over and asks, "Hey, can you pull me a list of all of our customers who live in Germany?" This is the perfect job for a basic SQL query.
So how do we translate that request into SQL? Well, it almost always comes down to three core parts. First, you have select. This is where you tell the database what information you want to see, which columns. In this case, maybe their first name and their country. Second, from. This tells the database where to go look for that information. Which table is it in? Well, that would be our customers table. And finally, where. This is your filter. How do we narrow it down? Simple. We only want the customers where the country equals Germany. Select, from, where. That's the foundation of almost everything you'll do in SQL.
Okay, so now you get the basics. You understand databases, you understand SQL, but so what? Why should you really care about this? What makes learning this simple language a genuine professional superpower?
It really boils down to three huge things. First, it is the language of data, period. If you want to work with data in any serious way, you have to speak its language. Second, the demand for this skill in the job market is just enormous. And it's not just for data analysts anymore. Marketers, product managers, developers, they all need it. And third, it's the engine running behind the scenes of everything. Even when you're using a fancy tool with buttons and menus, you can bet it's just translating your clicks into SQL in the background.
And look, this isn't just hype. When you actually analyze job descriptions for any role that touches data, SQL consistently comes out on top. It is the #1 most requested technical skill. Knowing it immediately puts you ahead of the curve.
At the end of the day, every bit of data, whether it's big or small, has a story to tell. It holds secrets about your customers, your products, and your business. SQL isn't just a programming language. It's the key that unlocks those stories. It's what allows you to finally listen to what your data has been trying to tell you all along. So the only question left is, are you ready to listen?